Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today, Kenji and I are going to be talking about building wealth with hotel to multifamily conversion projects. And this is an area that we've really built out in our own portfolio the last couple of years, and think it has a lot of benefits for all of you who are out there investing in long-term rentals. Might be something you want to consider doing. And so we'll be talking through a lot of the really highlights of going and having these properties that are hotels that you're able to convert into multifamily conversions and be able to provide a lot of great housing for individuals out there.
Now, if you don't know what a conversion is, what it entails is changing a property's use from one thing to another. And so some examples are taking a retail space and turning it into a restaurant, or maybe repurposing office buildings into residential spaces. And then also you might have an industrial facility that you can turn into a co-working space. So again, it's taking something that's used for something originally and then changing the use to something else.
So Kenji and I have actually been involved in hotel to multifamily conversion space for a while now. Back in 2019, we were almost involved in buying a 173 unit in Tucson, Arizona. It was going to be student housing. It was going to be converted into student housing, but then COVID hit and it actually turned into this affordable housing, which is part of what we're going to be highlighting is such a great benefit of these hotel to multifamily conversion projects.
Yeah, and then over the next 5 years, we actually continue to work with the sponsor of that Arizona project. He got into this space in a really big way, and we've been kind of watching what he's been doing. And then over the last couple of years, we had a chance to work with him directly, and now we've been general partners and acquiring over 1,000 hotel doors that we'll be converting into affordable housing units.
So what we wanted to talk to you guys about today is why we were so interested in this space and why you might want to consider maybe adding some of these to your own portfolio, because we think it's got a lot of upsides to be able to take these hotels and make them into multifamily, both for you as the investor, but also for the tenant as well. So number one we wanted to talk about was forced appreciation. You guys know we're huge proponents of forced appreciation. And for those of you who are not familiar with what forced appreciation it is, it's really taking a property, which is a small business, and making it perform better. And then it's worth more to the next individual. And so in real estate terms, what that means is you buy a property, it has making a certain amount of cash flow, you increase income, you decrease expenses, it makes more cash flow. It's now a more profitable business. And the next investor who buys that property from you is going to pay a premium, and you're going to make money through something called forced appreciation.
Yeah, and what's great about these conversion projects is that you can force appreciation in two ways. So the first way you're forcing appreciation is just from the asset conversion itself. So hotels sell for a lot less than an equivalent multifamily property. So when you switch from a hotel, which you can buy at a significant discount compared to a multifamily, you get millions of dollars of appreciation, every time you take these 100-unit hotels and turn it into a 100-unit multifamily property.
So what Kenji's really saying is the asset class is priced differently. So a hotel is priced at a lower price per square foot, whereas a multifamily actually on market, the same property just made into a multifamily has a higher price per square foot and the asset class itself.
Now, the second way is just the same as you would do with a value add multifamily property, which is to renovate the property, improve the interiors, improve the exterior, attract people to come in and pay higher rents. And what happens is that you're going to increase the value of the property as a result of that, because people are coming in paying higher rent. You're going to increase the revenue that the property generates. You're going to increase the income. And as a result, the property is going to appreciate in value.
Now think about these little motel rooms, right? Normally, maybe they have a kitchenette, but that's about it. Oftentimes they're just a bed, dresser, and a bathroom. And so they're not that many square footage. And what you're actually doing is you're taking these 400 or 500 square foot rooms and you're converting them into a full-on apartment. You're putting a kitchen in there. You definitely still need space for a bed. You've got a bathroom, but somebody's going to live in there. And so that does take a lot of money to be able to rehab it often, because you're making all these major changes. But the cool thing is you've got that forced depreciation. So you're getting a multiple of the amount of money that you're putting in to rehab the properties. So one of the downsides is you have to have a lot in your rehab budget when you're buying these types of properties. But the upside is the forced depreciation potential is just astronomical compared, because you're actually taking something that was just a bedroom and now it actually is a full-on apartment.
Yeah, and something I wanted to clarify is the square footage. You had mentioned, 400 square foot, and then there's a range, and some of the smallest units are probably more like 150 to 200 square
Mhm.
feet. Some of the larger ones might be 400, maybe 500 square feet. But one of the things that we're doing with these properties was we're adding a lot of amenities. And so it's almost kind of moving the living space outside of the unit, right? So, okay, you go there to sleep and maybe you can cook, but really where you're going to be spending a lot of your time is outside the units in these amenity spaces. So these are going to have spaces for like a workspace, for example. It's going to have, lots of, fun activities like pool tables, gathering spaces. So it's going to be really, really great for people, and it's just a different type of living. And that's how we're addressing the smaller units.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about affordable housing next, but I do want to say this kind of creates a community atmosphere. And for those of you who are big into midterm rentals, this is also a way to think about it. You can imagine if you're a couple miles from a hospital and you're going to have one of these hotel to multifamily conversions, and you just wanted to make a midterm rentals for traveling nurses and traveling healthcare professionals. What a cool community that would be. Yes, they've got a 300 square foot apartment, but what they really have is they have a pool outside, they have an area they grill, and they get to have community, they get to talk. And so it's just a very different situation than you find in a lot of larger multifamilies because the properties inside are so small. And usually, it's only going to be a person or two. It's not going to be like a whole family in these types of properties.
Now, the second thing we love about these conversion projects is that it meets a significant need for affordable housing. And so if you look at the data, there's an estimated shortage of about 7.3 million homes. And think about it, we've acquired over 1,000 hotel doors, which is great, but it doesn't even come anywhere close to making a dent in that 7.3 million. So there's a long way to go. There's a lot of opportunity, and I just wanted to say that it doesn't have to be 100-unit properties. You can buy smaller motels, for example, that might be, 5, 10, 15 units, and you can turn that into affordable housing as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of us are very much inclined to be able to help populations that are underserved or in need. And this is really a huge need in our country is housing. We were recently talking to a Section 8 expert, actually, as part of our membership site for Empire Builders content. And he was mentioning what a need there is for Section 8 and how big a long waiting list that they have. And so affordable housing, you're actually contributing and being part of the solution. Yes, you're doing well on the cash flow side. It's still a business. You're doing well there, but you're also meeting a need. And so I think you can feel good about that providing this type of housing, especially, updated, clean, safe units. There's just that part of it too. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention something else that he said. This is the Section 8 expert. And while this varies in different markets, he was saying that there was a real need in his market and many other markets for single units, right? So smaller units for one person. So he said a lot of the people who are on these programs, they're elderly, right? And they don't have, a lot of family, they're living alone. And so this type of housing is really, really great for them.
So that's actually what we've seen with some of these conversions we've done too, that huge sections of the building will be taken by these kind of formal programs to help people who need affordable housing. And so it also adds a little bit more rent security on the owner's side to know that some of the units are absolutely going to be taken care of when you can kind of have that relationship with a housing authority or another group that really provides housing for people in need.
The third thing we love about these conversion projects is there's a lot of opportunity here. A lot of these hotels are owned by mom and pop owners. They're elderly and they just want to sell. They want to get out. And the hotel sector got hit hard during COVID. And they took a financial hit. That time was really rough for them. And so as a result of that, a lot of them just want to get out. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We're seeing that a lot of them are selling these at a significant discount. And we already talked about how hotels are trading for a lot less than multifamily, right, as an asset class. And so on top of that, add that there's a lot of sellers who want to sell, right? So I think it can be a potential buyer's market, a lot of opportunities for buyers to come in and get these properties at a significant discount.
And just with real estate in general, it's all about seeing patterns. And so once you start to see this pattern, once you open yourself up to this opportunity of being able to take these hotels and convert them into multifamily, you're going to start looking for the pattern and you're going to see it everywhere. And so I just think this is really important to be aware it's an opportunity, start learning more about it. And then if you find that you're interested, you can start specifically targeting these types of properties and be able to find the right one. And I remember we went and we actually put an offer in a couple years ago in Oklahoma City. This was also going to be a motel to multifamily conversion, probably 2-3 years ago now. And part of the challenge there was it was a good price, reasonable price. It was very rundown, but then I think we felt like the neighborhood just wasn't maybe going to transition fast enough. And so that's another thing just to be aware of with these properties. You're not only looking at the building itself, but you're really thinking about the neighborhood. Are your midterm rental people going to feel safe here? Is this a place that, that is improving, that is going to be nice? Because sometimes these motels are not in the nicest areas. So just be like with all real estate, think about the path of progress and make sure that you're going to buy in an area that's going to continue to improve over time and is going to be a great site for a multifamily property, not just a motel.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention there is that we're finding that these projects do require a lot of investment. Again, that emphasizes the importance of buying these at a significant discount because you're going to put a lot into it. And we talked about improving the interiors, but we're also adding significant amenities as well. And so all that costs money. And if you're really trying to turn around a building, imagine a hotel that is run down and attracting the wrong type of hotel clientele, and you're trying to completely change that and turn it around. That means that, you really got to change not just the exterior, but also the interiors. Sometimes, you're going to put a gate and increase security significantly because some of these properties are in areas that aren't as good. But as Leti said, you definitely want to think about the area, and also you want to also think about putting in a lot of money and improving them.
Yeah, and so you need to create the relationships with the right people. So you need to make sure you have really good contractors. You're going to make sure that you're going to work very closely with your commercial lender because you're going to need a pretty large rehab loan to be able to turn this property around. And you often are going to buy these completely empty, right? They don't have any tenants in place because they're not even apartment buildings or hotels. And so there's a lot of nuances to it. You're going to have to find the right team that can help you, that are familiar with these kind of conversions because they're just a little bit different. But for all of you out there who have taken Zero to Freedom, who are empire builders, this is totally within your wheelhouse. You can create these business plans. You can find the right team members. You can allot them. You can maybe get a couple partners from our community so you can go out and buy a big property like this, and you can totally figure this out. We've been involved in so many of these now that we've seen the systems and processes, and I know there are a number of people in our community who have now been involved as part of EB Pro in raising money for these types of properties too. So I think that you're going to see a lot more interest in the physician space in these hotel to multifamily conversions in the next few years because so many of us have gained this expertise in this area now.
Now, you might be wondering, what type of returns can you get, right? We already talked about how, you can probably get these properties at a discount. You can force appreciation two ways. There's a lot of opportunity, but what are the numbers, right? And so just wanted to kind of share some numbers that might be helpful for you to kind of frame this and see how it compares to other types of investments. And just to give you a sense, if you know the IRR metric, which is called internal rate of return, if you understand that metric, the IRR for the properties is in the high 30s to 40%. Another metric might be average annual return. It's going to be somewhere in that range, 30, 40%. But gives you a sense of the type of return you can get for these types of properties. Some passive investors who are investing in these properties are getting a 2.5 to 3x equity multiple on their investment, right? So if they put in 100,000, they can get maybe 250 to 300,000 back. That's the projected return. But again, that type of return is only possible because the overall return of the property is so high. And again, I'll just say there's a lot of things that have to happen in order for you to get those types of returns, but those are the types of returns we are projecting for these properties.
Now, if you are an individual investor, or maybe you're going to get a couple partners and you're going to go buy one of these properties, part of the reason that you're going to have these really high returns is that forced appreciation. That's really what it's about. It's the two ways that you're forcing appreciation that we covered a little bit earlier. So you're not going to have cash flow initially, right? You're not going to, it's going to take some time to turn this property around and rehab it and be able to rent it out. And if you're adding all these amenities, it's going to take even more time. So you need to make sure you have enough reserves to, stand 6 to 12 months while you're turning around this property, and maybe even longer, knowing that, and then you're going to cash flow after that. And then you're going to have all that forced appreciation. And so you'll have the opportunity to either cash out refi or be able to sell in 1031 exchange, in a couple of years. And then that's when you're going to make most of your return. And so that's why, as passive investors, have these high returns, but keep in mind, they're not coming the first year or two because you're doing all this rehabbing. It's really going to be a little bit longer out. Lastly, we've just been talking about hotel to multifamily, but you've got to think about office space and are there opportunities in office space to be able to convert them to residential? Are there any other opportunities out there that you can convert into residential? Because there's this huge housing need, and there are buildings now that are area, like hotel and office space, retail space that have taken big hits since COVID and since people have kind of changed and moved out of cities. And so is there an opportunity for you to be converting things? And do you want to look for other opportunities besides just these types that we've covered here? Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. We've loved having you and talking about all of this. If you're interested in passive investing in hotel to multifamily, you should feel free to check out Fast Fire Capital, which is our capital raising business, where we have passive opportunities for our community. And if you're interested in hotel to multifamily for yourselves, that's awesome. Tell us what you're doing. We'd love to hear from you. You can write to support at Semi-Retired MD anytime. And remember to leave us a review, and we will see you next time.